Jimmy didn't just give me this video camera to go play with, like I don't know what he thinks I was doing with it, but what happened was early in '94, Jimmy is trying to keep the Rock and Roll Feud and the Heavenly Bodies. He's trying to add the next layer to it, trying to keep the story going. And he's decided what we're going to do is he's going to start freshen up the angle by having them in marathon matches. Go an hour, most falls, and the hour wins. Okay. So Jimmy comes to me, calls me one night, come over to the house. He says, okay, this Friday I can't be in Hyden, Kentucky, wherever it is. He says, I want you to take this video camera, get up in the stands, set it up like a hard cam at the TV shoot. Okay. He said, the main event is going to be Rock and Roll and Bodies. They're going to go an hour. I want you to film the last 20 minutes. And then afterwards, I want you to go down to the locker room and get an interview, get two 60-second promos with Ricky saying, boy, we had you. And your tongues were dragging and you can't hang with us. And, we're going to challenge you to a series of marathon matches, most falls in the hour. He said, get two promos with Ricky. If Ricky's okay with them, show them to Ricky. If Ricky likes them, good enough. And we're going to use that on TV. And that's going to start the angle. So I film this. They go to an hour draw, get that. So that was the first thing I did with the camera. And then about a week or two later, we're getting ready to go into February. We have a big show called Sunday Bloody Sunday. This is one of my favorite Ron Wright stories. So Jimmy says, hey, I need you to go up to Kingsport, Tennessee, about an hour or two north of Morristown. And I need you to go shoot interviews with Ron Wright. Take the video camera, meet Ron, call Ron, see where he wants you to meet him at his house, wherever, and get 2 or 3 30 or 60-second promos. Okay. So I call Ron Wright. Now, Ron Wright is, of course, a legend in the area. He's the number one hillbilly, right? And so he's got that thick as molasses Southern drawl. People say I have an accent, but Ron Wright was thick. So I call Ron. I said, Ron, it's Casey. Jimmy wants me to come up and do a couple interviews with you for the Sunday Bloody Sunday. Dirty White Boy is going to face Brian Lee in a Tennessee chain match. They just like an old bull rope match, but we use the Tennessee chain instead. All right, well, meet me at Shoney's. Okay. Shoney's, the restaurant, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So I go to Kingsport, Tennessee to meet Ron Wright, the number one hillbilly at the Shoney's restaurant. Nice little family restaurant. Well, we go in and they don't have a private room. But the manager says, well, you can have this little area and I'll pull across this little fake partition, like a little portable wall.
Yep.
That's no thicker than, a notebook, a magazine. Okay. So I get Ron, I'm framing him up and I'm okay. All right. I got him all set. Okay. We're going to do a 60-second promo or 30-second promo for Sunday Bloody Sunday, Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony, Brian Lee in a Tennessee chain match. Now, the restaurant on the other side of this partition is full. It's like 2 in the afternoon. There's plenty of people in there, right?
Right.
So all of a sudden, Ron goes from 0 to 60 in like this. And he starts, my dirty white boy's going to blast that son of a gun in the eye. Here's going to be blood running down the halls. We're going to bust open his nose. We're going to knock out his teeth. There's going to be blood running down the halls. And that stuff. And he just starts going. And all of a sudden, you hear, it's perfect like a comedy. You just hear water glasses spilling, forks getting dropped on plates as he's just talking about how bloody it's going to be. And he's going to knock out his teeth and knock out his eye and bust his head open. And it was hilarious just hearing. You can actually hear it if you ever watch the tape because we couldn't edit that part out. I had to use the interview so you could hear dishes clattering and people are just like, what is this? So that was another thing I had to use the tape for. So God bless Ron Wright. I know we've lost him. He was amazing to work with someone like him. And I didn't get to see him in his prime by any means. But again, I'm a history guy. I like the older stuff. And so I know the stuff he did. And I would see the old press clippings. And Ron Wright was tremendous. So next thing, so I use that for the camera and I take that back and we air that on the shows. And those are the promos for the shows. Then Corny says, hey, take the video camera because I did a bunch of stuff and I think he just forgot that I produced these segments. He says, I need you to go down to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Terry Gordy is coming in. And I need you to go to Terry's house and get a couple of promos with him. And I'm like, oh, Terry Gordy. Man, I grew up. I got Georgia Championship Wrestling in 1981 on cable. I saw him drop Ted DiBiase on his head in the studio. I saw him and Carrie and Kevin and David Von Erich at, you know, in the couple, like I've seen him working in all Japan. Like I probably that was the one I marked out for the most. I mean, I'm biting my tongue. I'm trying to play cool, John, but I'm just like,
Right.
oh my God, it's Terry Gordy.
Nice. Yep.
So unfortunately, this was probably 8 months after he had his incident, his overdose, whatever happened to him on the plane to Japan. So I drive up this mountain and I come up to this big, beautiful mountain cabin. I walk in, knock on the door, and he lets me in. And it was like talking, like I have kids. It was like talking to it was like talking to your 8-year-old son's friend. Like, you know how you got kids?
Oh yeah, 8 years
All right.
old.
So you know how when you talk to their friends and they're like, they know you're an adult, but you're not their dad, and they're very nervous and timid.
Yes, awkward
That,
conversation. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, that was what it was like talking to Terry. Like he'd had that overdose or stroke or whatever happened. This was not. This wasn't the bully of Bad Street, man. This
Right.
was, and so it's agonizing, and I'm trying to pull these promos out of him, and I'm coaching him. Like, you know, Terry, you can say this, and remind people that I drew. You know, I was 40,000 people in the Cotton Bowl, and I've, you know, wrestled the Triple Crown in Japan, and it wasn't there. It just, so I think we might have used those promos in the show because it was all we had. But that was probably one of the more disheartening moments. Like I had 100 million high moments there. I drove down that mountain just thinking, like, ooh, hey, God, this business just, whew, like, man, don't do drugs, man. So,
Yeah.
and then the last thing, the last one that I can remember, now we've got Jericho and Lance Storm of Cornette. And if you've ever seen some of the cheesy videos we made for them, and they're cheesy,
Oh,
let me tell you,
awful.
because
Yeah, they're
oh
awful.
yeah, the ride around the go kart and the ice skating, and so we do all this stuff down around Dollywood and Gatlinburg, which is just a huge amusement park of a town. Well, then the next one we want to do is Jimmy wants to, and Jimmy was able to do those himself. I was there dragging cord and stuff, but nobody knew who the Thrill Seekers were. So Corny could direct all those segments. The first ones we did at Gatlinburg and at Dollywood, just showing them, feeding them bears and stuff that goofy, you know, playing in the video arcades.
Yep.
The next ones he wants to do are Storm and Jericho in downtown Knoxville talking to girls. And it starts in a hotel room with some girls. And well, Corny says, hey, I can't. They've been on TV now. I need you to take the camera, go downtown with them, hit the bar scene. Now, Knoxville is a college town. University of Tennessee is a college town.
Yep.
So, okay, so he's like, I need you to go down, take him to a couple bars, video him talking to girls and doing fun stuff at the bars. Okay, so this is, again, I'm producing these. Okay. Problem was, Lance was married, and Lance Storm, great guy. Don't have a bad thing to them. He's awesome. But Lance Storm had zero interest. I mean, his wife is here. She came down from Canada with him, so she's at home in the apartment. He has zero interest in even pretending, for the sake of a TV angle or a bio, little TV bio, like no interest in talking to girls. He's just like, nope, 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 which leaves it up to Jericho. Right. Jericho is a natural ham. You know, he chews up scenery. He's just like a little Roddy Piper. Jericho had no game at that point. I understand he's married a lovely lady now, and he's got kids, and God bless him, good for him. Trying to get him to go up and like, hey, there's a couple cute chicks over there. Like, so he was just, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I'm like, you guys are supposed to be our hot young studs, our next fabs, and there's nothing fabulous about you. You're too boring ass. Like, yes, you can do fun little Japanese high spots, but you don't even talk to the girls. So myself, I have to go over and be like, hi, excuse me, ladies. My buddies and I are just doing a little TV show. We couldn't even say blogs or this way before this. Like, we're just doing some fun little skits for a show. Would you mind? Could we come over and just pretend like you're interested? Could you just pretend like you're interested in these two guys?
Yep.
Okay. So I have to do this for them all right. And then I came up with the idea, like, Chris, why don't you be extra cheesy? And hey, miss, would you mind just slapping him like he's being fresh at the bar? And so those are the videos that, I did for them as well. And that's why I had this camera for months, because every time someone would need to come in, and Jimmy, as the lead heel in the company in kayfabe, he would not go out in public with his new young hot babyface tag team. You know, he wasn't. No offense to Terry Gordy, but he wasn't going to drive 3 hours to Chattanooga to talk to someone he already knew wasn't all there. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew about this incident, and so that's why I had this camera forever. To me, it was company property. You know, like these days, you start
Yeah.
a job, they give you a laptop, cell phone, hell, you might even get a car. You know, so to me, it was always company equipment. It was just part of, you know, and so that's why I had the camera all those months. And then there might have been a couple other little segments, some Bruiser Bedlam stuff or something that came up that I would do little shoots for. But that's where my job had escalated too. You know, like I said, I started delivering posters, and by the end, like I mean, these days they call you producer. I was just holding the camera, but whatever. I won't dress it up. But I mean, I'm doing these segments for our TV show towards the end, and that's why I have the camera.
Was not stolen though. Was not stolen.
No, I did not steal the camera. People like, oh, he stole Cornette's camera. And here's the thing that, and I've never been able to explain this about the money, or at least not. When Jimmy and I had our blow up, because again, I've got 20 things to do. I've told him I'm overworked. He knows it. He's tried to take some off my plate, but there's nobody to help. And so I'm just prioritizing, like, well, I'll just do what I can. And it wasn't enough. And Sandy was getting mad because the towns were not drawing and because they didn't get their posters. It has nothing to do with the fact that we produced a shit show or shouldn't have been in this tiny town. Blame the
Right.
poster kid, but okay, whatever. But what happened with the money was Jimmy didn't want to pay me my salary for the last 2 weeks, which I accepted. The thing, the money that I was always like, I want my money. People go, oh, I want my money. Yeah, I wanted my money. I had put in my own money for expenses. This is
Right.
August, dating back to the previous Thanksgiving Thunder. So, like when the Thrill Seekers put Corny's face through a birthday cake, I went to the store and paid for that birthday cake. When the Thrill Seeker, or whoever it was, rock and roll dumped pig manure on Tammy Fitch, I'm the one that went to the store and bought all that pig manure. I would always go to the store and buy all this stuff, props for TV. If someone got tarred and feathered, I bought the pillow, the corn syrup, and all that, with the idea that I was going to be paid back. And Corny said, go get that, and I'll pay you back. And I had these receipts like, dude, like you owe me $300 for this stuff. So that to me, if you don't want to pay me for not doing my job, fine. But to me, that the money that you owe that I invested in the company, not invested, but you know, that I paid for, that you said
Yep.
you would pay me back, to me was a separate issue. And I wasn't going to let that go. I understand if you feel like I didn't do my job, although I did the best I could. You don't want to pay me. That doesn't fly in the real world. But you know, these days, I mean, if your boss says, hey, we're going to have a company picnic tomorrow, go spend $300 on sandwiches and I'll pay you back. And then they fire you and they don't they still owe you that $300? That's kind of how I felt. Like, you still owe me that, is how I felt. And so when he calls me up and he's like, do you have a camera? Yeah, it's sitting here. Well, I need it. And I'm like, well, you're not going to pay me my salary? Nope. Well, how about the money you owe me? No, I'm not going to pay you that either. And that was just like, you know what, man? I've given you 2 years. And something else people don't realize. When I started working for Jimmy, and if anybody was watching wrestling in 92, the legend of Cornette then was not of this bombastic, there was no Dairy Queen video in 1992. If you knew
Right.
Jim Cornette in 92, he was this awesome young manager. He always had this great tag team. They always had like the best matches on the show. Like, he was a promising young booker. He'd been on the booking committee in Atlanta. Nobody knew that he was this bombastic, just like would blow up all the time. So when I started there, that's what I thought. I'm working for this funny guy, this promising booker, this guy who has great tag teams, always books great matches, and like, but over time he starts blowing up because the stress of trying to run your promotion and trying to serve this master in New York got to him. He's having these blow-ups. That's not fun, man. Like, nobody wants to go to work and deal with that day after day after day after day. At least I didn't. You know, I kind of grew up with some bombastic parents, and it was kind of a deal breaker for me. Like, if I ever get out, I remember as a kid, as a teenager, like, if I ever get out of this house, I'm not having this in my personal life. So the fact that really my only job in wrestling, first job in wrestling, I walked into what became someone who was very bombastic like that and just erupted, that the job was not fun. The business was going down. The money was hard to get. I was always fighting to get paid. I've got a boss who's a lunatic. It was just like, you know what, man? I'm 24/7 for you. I've done all I can. I've begged you to get some help. You won't hire anybody because you can't afford to. I'm drowning because you're overextended. So now I'm overextended on work. I can't keep up. And if you're not going to pay me my salary, at least give me the money that you owe me. The company owes me that I paid for, so I can get the fuck out of Tennessee. So I can go back to North Carolina, or I go out to Wyoming where I want to go see Yellowstone and check it out. And that was really why I dug my heels in. And I talked to Robert Gibson, because Robert had really taken me under his wing. He was kind of, he was just a good guy. And I was just like, what do I do? Like, he won't give me the money he owes me. And I don't know if it was good advice from Robert or bad, but he was the one who said, try and work out a trade for that camera. If he still has that. And of course, in hindsight, it wasn't such great advice, but I don't think I know Robert wasn't trying to set me up. I mean, I'd been in his home several times, took care of his kids, and Robert was very good to me. So it just didn't work.
Did you trade the money for the camera? Is that what happened?
So no, so Corny comes over to get the camera, and he takes a baseball bat to my car, knocks all the windows and stuff out. And so at that point, it becomes a legal issue, and I just step back. And again, like I said, my mom had worked for a law firm, so I just said, hey, can you get one of your lawyer friends to deal with this? I don't want to have shit to do with this. I'm going, and Jimmy got an attorney, and I got an attorney. And so the damages to my car were about $2,000. He owed me $300 for a receipt, for things that I bought for the company for TV and stuff. And I'd gone out to Wyoming, and I landed a job at a ranch, but I couldn't stay. So I was like, you know what? And I don't mind saying, I put the screws to him a little. I was like, there's lost income. So I said, you owe me $2,300, round that up to $3,000. And I'll bring the camera to your lawyer's office, and we'll sign off everything. So it took a month or two of the lawyers doing their lawyers talk. But, the funny thing is we go, and I didn't even know Jimmy was going to be there. I go to this attorney's office in Morristown. I think I'm there to pick up a check. I've got the camera in my trunk, and Corny's sitting in the lobby. I'm like, oh shit. We haven't seen each other in 2 months, and it didn't end well. And so we're just kind of sitting there across from each other in this little law firm waiting area. And his attorney comes out. Gentlemen, I'll be right here. I'll be with you too in just a sec. Try not to. He was kind of a cornball. He's like, try not to have a big brawl and tear up my waiting room, guys, huh? And he turned around and walked off. And I just kind of looked at Jimmy, and Jimmy looked at me. And at the same time, we both looked at each other, and we're just like, fucking jack off, because we still had that. And we both kind of cracked each other up. It broke the ice. He gave me the check. I gave him the camera. He said, what are you going to do now? I said, I'm right back to Wyoming. I got everything I own in the back of my car, and I'm heading right back.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news